How you doing?
I mean, don't these just look delicious? Well, let's go back to the beginning. So they say you can't get fruit within the first year, but this is what I got from Star Nursery in the fall. Let's start with watering. I'm just going to use these guys. These are bubblers that the tops, they can be open as much as you want them to. My idea was I was going to water and then I can close them as much as I need to. The more you close them, the less water that comes out. But it turns out like I just have these fully open and that's all it needs. Grapes are honestly they're pretty simple. They only need a handful of things. They really don't require a whole lot of crazy care. Alright, so if you watch my earlier videos, I built a trellis and this is where these are going to be held in the ground right underneath here. So let's talk about soil. I'm just going to throw in a little bit of the soil that I make with if you watch one of my other videos, decomposed granite and whatnot. You do not want to put any compost or anything in here. As you can see, this is like rock and clay, and we're putting it up against a wall. So if that's any indication, in Vegas sun, full sun, this is a north-facing wall, so it's getting full east to west sun, and that's what they need. They need a lot of heat. Not just a lot of heat, but a lot of sunlight. So if you're thinking about getting grapes, make sure you put them in the warmest, sunniest location you have. In Vegas, we're zone 9B, so they really do want full sun, and we're basically a desert. And I'm just going to mix some of my soil in here, but for the most part, it's going to be native soil, so not much amendments. So I'm just going to say it, Vegas soil sucks. It's clay and it's rock, like that's all you got. So what you can kind of think of it as is you can make a layer above all of that and let the roots grow out into that. And then I've heard arguments that when you have your own soil and then the plants will die once they grow into the other soil, but to me it's more of a, if it can get through it then it's great. Like the roots are going to be stronger by the time they get to that other soil. So I mean, take for it what you will. I'm going to show with results on this method, but I can't stress enough, you cannot have, it is really not a good idea to have things that are dying in your soil. So that compost, the wood, and all of that. Sure, people try to add stuff like that for aeration, but the thing is, it's going to break down. Once it breaks down, it turns to decomposing material. You don't want that suffocate, that draws oxygen, and then that suffocates your roots. So root rot isn't because of water necessarily, it's just because you're not getting good enough drainage. I digress. So what you want to do is on your trellis, you just want to start getting this all trellised up and going in and out. I'm trying to have this as close as I can to the wall, to the trellis, and then it'll have tendrils that'll grab on and it'll just grow right up the trellis. Alright, so since I have it above grade, I am going to add a little bit of my own soil. I'm also going to mix in native soil as much as I can. It just sucks because the landscaping of Vegas generally is rocks, so not only does our soil suck, but it's like rocks. You got to dig out the rocks and then you got to move those around. But at any rate, I'm just going to mix as much as I can. I don't want to just have a bunch of rocks. So this is what I have to do. If you have decomposed granite, you can just use that, but you know, that's purchasing more. I have this already, so I'm just gonna mix this together. This is what we're looking like. It's pretty well draining. And then, like I was saying though, you want to have everything that's breaking down above the top. So I'm adding some fertilizer and things for now, and then mulch and your rotting things that can rot. I have that above. I don't want that in, I want it above. It'll feed down. And realistically, like a bag of mulch, like once a year in the springtime is all I'm going to do for these. I am working on creating my own mulch. Once you have more plants and things of that nature, you'll have your own mulch. You don't need to purchase anything. I'm kind of in that 4-year mark where I'm getting rid of all that. Alright, so we've been in here for a little bit of time, and we are already growing. And as you can see, within a month, they're already getting a little bit of these little here grapes. My idea is just to let it do its thing, let it grow out and go wherever it wants in the first year, the first 12 months, and see how that is and go from there. But you want to weave these in and out of all of the trellis. It'll grow and it'll hold on, but if you can train it, it'll be a lot better. Some of the stock here is a little bit too hard and off already, so I can't really bend it around, but it'll reach. Some vining plants like my kiwi vine, they kind of need to wrap around something. With grapes, they have tendrils that reach out and wrap around, and I mean, once they grab onto something, they're not letting go. Alright, so here we are, and like I said, I like to let things grow out, but you really don't want anything at the bottom. Like, you don't want your grapes to be sitting on the floor or anything of that nature. Generally, pruning is done in the beginning of the year, like spring, but I didn't do that. I just kind of let it do its own thing, so I think we're going to have to come in here and prune these. As you can see, grapes are already growing on here, so these are just going to go to waste, or they're going to invite a lot of issues. The thing is, though, with Vegas or in your desert climates, there's not a lot of humidity. It's just dry air, so we don't have to worry about a lot of those things that other places have to worry about. So these really aren't going to stay moist enough to get any sort of issues, but it's a better practice to keep them off. Got the old trusty snips, and I always use Lysol for my disinfecting. There's nothing wrong with using this. Use what you will. Some people just use alcohol or things like that nature, but I've had success with this. Alright, let's get to work. So all I'm doing essentially is 1 bag of compost, and I'm literally watering 2 times a day for about 10 minutes. And then on like Saturday or one day of the week, I do a deep watering across the board with all my plants. That's essentially my watering schedule across the board. When it's nice outside and below 100, maybe 3 times a week. When it's over 100, 3 times a day at a few minutes. That will vary though based on your soil. And then you want to look at something like this, something that creates a lot of airflow. You want nothing, you don't want grapes on the ground. I can see the bottom trunks. I have my bubblers spaced out. It always frustrated me with knowing how people water, but it's all based on your soil, how much water it can hold. And every once in a while, you get all this new growth throughout the, summer months. You just want to come in here and run your grapes through, because once they harden off, you can't really bend them. So just be sure to come out here every once in a while, put them through the trellis if they're sticking out, allow it to grow in the direction that you want it to grow in. See how it's really green in here? This is when you want to do it. It's a lot easier with 2 hands, so be that as it may. But all in all, this guy is really looking fabulous. About a month later, this is what we're looking like. We're getting a bunch of little tiny grapes growing, but they are in clusters. If you take a look at these, and this is less than a year. Like, this hasn't even been 12 months. But look how they're all super close together, though. They're all packed up and tight. Then so what happens is, I think grapes are kind of like citrus. I haven't read this or heard this anywhere, but I've noticed this on my other grapevine, and I'm seeing it on here. But if it looks like a bunch of the grapes, like they're just been burst, as though they just popped or disappeared. You know, the first year I thought it was some sort of bug or bird or something like that, but realistically I think they self-thin, because if they were to stay together they would burst each other as they grew. Like it would be a complete mess. So I'm pretty sure these are self-thinning. But if you're looking around, you can see how many grapes this is going to make. Not even 12 months. So the people that say that grapes only grow on the second year, I don't believe that. I mean, this thing just took off in this climate, at least. This is again 9B Vegas. Growing up through the top, it loves the sun. I get irritated. This doesn't. It loves it. All those long tendrils. Alright, now check this out. Now look how good this looks. These are the grapes after what to me seemed like they thinned. Now doesn't it make more sense? Imagine all of these being so close together, and you know how big grapes can get, so it makes sense for them to thin. You want them to look like this, like little beads. They look like little olives. If they wouldn't have done it, then it would make sense to do it yourself. I don't know how it works in other climates. I can only talk about this desert, but to me it makes sense. I have this grape and a Thompson. This is a red flame. My Thompson, I got grapes at the bottom. It's not what I'm trying to have. I don't want grapes on the ground. I don't want bugs to come up here and eat this. And this is compost, right? So I have something that I'm growing. Look at that. I have something that I'm growing, and it's just it's feeding, adding feed. So don't just think of it as something that's feeding you. Think of it as something that's potentially going to feed itself. And at the end of the season, these leaves and everything are going to drop off and feed them. These feel like little olives, though. Look at my pomegranate in a pot, blooming. And this is a 5-gallon. They can fruit in pots. Most of my things are grown in pots, and they do well. I mean, you just got to take care of them. Grapes and pomegranates handle the sun really well. I'm going to put these in the ground someplace. I'm getting off subject. So at this point it's really hot, so I do water daily, about 10 minutes. It's so beautiful. One day you're going to come out and this is what you're seeing. The sun and the heat is what it needs. It really needs light. You don't want to have these covered up, but slowly but surely the color will change. And again, I've just been watering these with the bubbler. And I do come out and I'll hand water semi-deeply once to make sure, because with drip irrigation, what if something stops working, you know? That's it. So we had an incident with the peaches. I'm not taking any risks. There's tons of grapes on here. I want my grapes. I mean, some people love to feed the birds. That's fantastic. Happy for you. I grow for myself, and then the birds can have the extra. I already supplied them with sunflowers. They don't need my grapes. They don't need everything. They don't pay rent. And then this is what you're left with. Like, the leaves will slowly start falling off. And there are just clusters of grapes. Just beautiful. Some of these I want to leave on here for longer. Some of them not so much. But you can come out here and probably take a couple bunches off every day. Eat those, come back, let some of them ripen, because they're not ripening exactly at the same time. You don't want any of these that are green. And then what I'll generally do is take a bowl and just cut right into the bowl. It's that simple. Grapes in the bowl. It really doesn't take much. Just make sure you're not cutting your trellis. And it's funny because some of these are like raisins. Like, you leave them out here and you'll have grapes, and then you'll have raisins. You can leave them out here even longer and just make natural raisins. You don't need a dehydrator. You see that? Those are some raisins. So I've taken about half of them off. A lot of these are still green though. I don't want any of the green. And it's a lot of work to take off all these grapes. This is just one. I can't imagine. I guess that's why some people have them shaped like a T trellis or whatever that's called, because it's probably a lot easier to get to them. But this way, I just let it do what it does. Like, look at all these grapes though. Red Flame grapes. Like I said, I bought this at Starter. You can't tell me that doesn't look delicious. It makes me so happy. I know what's in this. But look, there's a lot of green. I don't want green. That's tart. Look at those raisins. There's some raisins on here. I have to get a better picture. Look at that, raisins. You get a cluster like this. I mean, one part's green, one part's red, and then one part's raisins. Like, what do you do? And I promise you, these raisins, look at these. These are the best raisins you'll ever have. Natural raisins. If you're in a desert climate, pomegranates or grapes are probably the easiest thing you could probably start off with, to be honest. For one family, one grapevine is more than enough to keep everybody well happy. And raisins that are the best raisins I've ever had, no pesticides. Do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, do all the things, leave some comments. But most importantly, let's grow.